Hello, people of the internet. All right, so let's see. No, that's not. It said I could make it a moderator. I don't know. Maybe
We're working through technical difficulties.
We're working on
Bear with
something
us.
really quick here to get something going, and then we'll be ready to answer those burning questions. Let me see if it'll let me. That's on YouTube. Let's see. Add moderator. Hallelujah.
Nice.
We did it. We figured it out.
You did it. I just sat here and watched because I am completely confused by all technology.
Okay, let's get out of there so we can. There. All right. So, little preface here. So my name is Rebecca Valera. If you haven't noticed or haven't seen the little tag where it has my name on it, I'm a former teacher turned realtor living here in the Dallas, Texas area. More specifically, McKinney, if you want to get nitty gritty. And I'm here today with one of my friends. Her name is Liana.
Hi.
And she is going to be answering a couple of questions. So today we're talking specifically about Dallas. She has moved to the Dallas area, back in 2015, she moved here. And so she's going to be sharing with you some experiences that she's had in the hopes of helping you with some of the fears and some of the anxiety that you might have if you're thinking about moving to the Dallas area. And to kind of start things off, she's going to tell us a little bit about herself, her background. Sorry, I didn't prepare you for this too well. But just, I mean, okay. She can start by, introducing herself. I'll let her go. I'll stop talking.
All right. So I know Rebecca already gave you my name, but I am Liana Vanderhoff. I grew up in Ohio, Northwest Ohio, and like she said, I've lived in Texas since 2015. I also live in the McKinney area. It's just me and my dog, and I bought a house there. So that's going to be needed once we start going through the questions, some needed information. So,
all right.
Is that everything?
Yeah.
That's the basics.
We'll kick off the party then a little bit earlier. So the first thing that I think people think about is after you move here, you're like, well, what are the things that you really wish that you would have known before you moved here to the Dallas area? What are some of those things that you can kind of share with that you experienced, you've gone through it, and if you're just like, if I would have just known this, it would have made things a whole lot easier.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is Southern hospitality. So moving from the north, you hear about Southern hospitality, but you're not really quite sure what it is. Moving down here, I remember my first week at work, everyone's holding open doors and saying good morning. And I was like, this is really weird. Like, what do these people want from me? Because up north, if you do that, people look at you a little strange. They're not quite as nice as everyone is here. So if you come down, you move down to the south, and especially if you're coming from the north, that's something that's unexpected, but nice. I mean, it's definitely a positive difference. Now I go back to the north and do that, and people look at me like I'm crazy. So that's fine. But
so you learned some things.
Yeah. Well, and something else up north, you don't say sir and ma'am. If you say sir and ma'am, people think seniority, they think old. Yeah. So if I, living up north, originally would have been like, somebody would say, yes, ma'am. I'd be like, I'm not 80.
Yeah.
So don't say ma'am. Down here, it's kind of more of an endearment. It's just a nice thing to do. I do it myself now. Like I'll be talking with Rebecca and be like, yes, ma'am. And it just becomes a habit. It's a nice thing. So that's something like, maybe, silly, but it was a big change for me. As far as just the move itself, I would say knowing where to live, like knowing what areas are good, what areas to stay away from.
Because it was different up north and you're from Ohio, right?
Yeah.
So it was different there. So what were some of the differences?
So something I learned, well, When I first called my first realtor when I was moving down here, the first thing I said I wanted was a house with a basement. And she said, that might be difficult to find. And I said, why is that? She said, houses in Texas don't have basements. The ground here can't support them. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was a little shocking because I grew up in Tornado Alley. So I'm like, what do you do if there's a tornado? And she said, we go to the center of the house. And I'm like, what? So
my grandma used to say, hug the toilet.
Yeah.
Just go and hug the pipes or in the slab. You'll be fine.
Right now it's my laundry room. Me and the dog cuddle. So that was a big change. Something else coming from the north to the south is corner lots. So in Ohio, you didn't want to live on a corner lot. They were hard to resell. People didn't like them. And so when I first came down,
just a lot to shovel in the winter.
Probably. Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. I just know they were hard to resell, and I would steer clear of buying a corner lot. I come to Texas, and my realtor's like, no. You want a corner lot if you can find one because you get more land. People actually like corner lots here. So that was a big surprise to me as well when I was, first looking for somewhere to live. And then I think probably the biggest thing, the most obvious thing is the weather. So the weather up north, you have snow and shoveling, as Rebecca said, for, 3 months at least out of the year. In Texas, and when you have all that, you're locking yourself in your house and a lot of people aren't going outside. Yeah. In Texas, I knew it would be hot, but I didn't know that it would be equally like you're locking yourself in your house for 3 months because it's
with the air conditioning on.
Right. Yeah. It's equally as hot as it is cold up north. Yeah. So that was a big adjustment as well.
Yeah. But it's getting nicer now.
It is right now.
Right now it's awesome.
And the fact that we don't have snow, I think since I've moved down here 5 years ago, we've had one snow and I know I'm going into detail here, but I remember I was in my office and everybody's coming by. They're like, Liana, you need to leave. Like, it's getting really bad outside. And I'm like, I had stuff I had to get done. And I was like, I didn't at that time have windows in my office. So I was like, I got to knock this out. I'll get out of here as soon as I get this knocked out. And I was literally probably the last person to leave that day. And I walk outside and it's like, I can still see grass. It was like there was a dusting on my car and everybody's gone. Everybody had freaked out because we had gotten this snow. And I was just, what is this? But you should know we do get ice on rare occasions and we're not prepared for it. So everything really does shut down. Everybody stays home and, they don't have the sand or the salt to put on the roads.
They do. They've gotten a little bit better on the bridges and overpasses, but at the same time you could hit black ice and then you're asking for trouble.
I was going to say, I don't see it too much because they're just not expecting it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to prepare for sometimes. So
yeah.
But all right. So that's awesome.
Yeah, those are the big surprises.
Yeah. All right. So the next question that I have for you is, what was probably the scariest thing? Just like moving from out of state, it's kind of a big leap of faith. What was the scariest thing for you to be like, okay, I'm going to do this? What were some of your fears that you experienced?
So I think for me, the biggest fear was leaving that security of the familiar, like my friends, my family. I had lived in the same general area within a couple of hours in Ohio my whole life. So if I needed to go get my hair done, I could still drive an hour to the same hairdresser. Or if I needed to go to the doctor, I could still drive to the same doctor. So it was leaving all that familiar and moving to an area where I literally knew no one when I moved down here. And so it was knowing I was going to have to rely on strangers. I was going to have to meet new people, which I'm somewhat outgoing, but when you're going to an area and you don't know what to expect and you don't know how the people are going to be, meeting new people can be a little bit scary. So you're definitely you have to put yourself out there in order to be able to meet people. So for me, that was probably the scariest thing. I will say I moved down for work. So I met a lot of people through, my job, and I definitely have learned Texas is a melting pot of people from everywhere. You're kind of hard pressed. It almost seems like you're hard pressed to find a true Texan, like somebody born and raised in Texas, because you talk to you talk to people and you're like, oh yeah, I grew up in Illinois, I grew up in California, so I just know my community alone, the community that I live in, it's like we put up a poll to see what state, and literally every state was represented just in my community, which is a newer community. So that was kind of surprising, but yeah, I mean, that helped, I will say, like knowing that you're alone, but you're not, because everybody's alone. So you kind of learn to work together, if that makes sense. So.
No, that's good. Diversity is good.
Yeah.
I do like the diversity.
Diverse.
There are some areas that aren't as diverse, I would say, but for the most part, I would say a majority of most of the areas are pretty diverse here in the North Dallas area.
Yeah, sure. I've only been in the DFW area since I've lived here, so I can't speak for all of Texas, but
yeah.
DFW is very diverse.
We'll just focus on DFW.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question that I have for you is, how many times did you have to come and visit the area before you found the house, you moved in and did all that? Like how many times fit the bill for you?
Okay, so when I found out that I was going to be moving to Texas, when I got the job, I took a week and flew down, met with a realtor, and literally just drove all over that week looking at houses, like in a mad scramble. Like I had to find a house because I was going to be moving, and didn't find a house, which was a little scary. So what I did was I ended up setting up a hotel, like a extended stay type hotel, and moved in there. I moved in probably about a month. I was living there, and still, like, my nights after I'd get off work, I would call the realtor, we'd jump in the car, and we'd go start looking at houses. So it probably took me about a month. When I came down, the market was crazy. Like houses were getting offers, like 3-4 offers, like in the first 10 minutes, and they were over asking price. So it was hard to compete when I first moved down and was looking for a house. I'm not sure how it is today, but I know it was that way then. So
it is very similar. Certain price points in certain areas, you'll have that level of competition for sure. Because the COVID, what it's done is crushed our supply. And so we don't have a whole lot of supply here. And as a result of that, there's not as many homes to see. And that it creates the demand. Yeah. It's that old supply and demand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and you have to, so I definitely had to do some compromising on what my wants were, but about a month in, I think I found something.
That's good. That's not too bad. That's usually what I tell people. I say you're going to look probably, even if it's just online, for about a month to really kind of get your feet wet and see what areas and neighborhoods you kind of want to be in, or what parts of town you feel better than other parts of town, and just kind of could do that. So.
Well, I should say that was a month after I was here, because to your point, I probably did do a lot of that online searching and took that week trip down before I moved down here. But because things were moving so fast, my realtor said, you might as well wait till you get here to try to find something, because if you want to see it in person before you buy it, which I absolutely did, and I recommend, you're going to have to just be here so that, if something comes on the market, you can go right away and go see it and go from there. So,
I'd say the last client that I helped, they got pretty lucky because we were in multiple offers too. They flew down. They picked the house that they really liked that Friday, and they were going to be here that Monday. And then the sellers were making final decisions on which offer, and we were able to see it see it like right before they made the decision, and they chose us as the winning bid or whatever. But
that worked out well.
Yeah.
Mine was not that smooth.
yeah, so sometimes it does work out like good, but other times, you need to have a plan B. I think that's important.
Absolutely.
It's an important reality and point to make, because when people move here, they're just like, well, I'll find something. And it's like, then, 2 months later,
right.
2 months later, you're still looking. So logistically, whenever you found your house, what are some things that you thought, like what did you need to do? What did you need to get set up for the big move because from another state, it's different than just like a move across the town,
Right. So I was actually selling a house in Ohio before I was moving down here. So it was that whole, selling a house, closing costs, closing documents, all of that there.
Getting that wrapped up. Yeah.
Right. Starting a new job here. So it was finding a realtor. It was making sure I had a place to live. Like I said, I lived in a hotel in the interim, and I had a dog. So I had to make sure it was a hotel that accepted pets. Just little things you don't think of. When I did finally find a house, it was, setting up the utilities and finding a new hairstylist, finding a new doctor, a new dentist, a new church, just all of that. And the timing, being specific, like I wanted to make sure.
Changing your driver's license. How was that?
Right. That is a miserable experience.
Even if you do live here, it's a miserable experience.
I think, and this is helpful for anybody who's moving to the area, I think I heard you can actually check in online now.
Ooh, nice.
To get in line for, when you get there, because if you just go, make sure you take the entire day off work, because it's going to take you all day to get a new license. Yeah. So that was quite the experience. I'm glad you reminded me of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just all of I will say I got really lucky. I was starting work with a company that put my my car on a flatbed, moved it down, packed up my house, moved it down. But it was timing all of that as well. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I didn't get a house that maybe necessarily the house that I wanted, because I learned I had to be flexible if I even wanted to get into a house. Yeah. So I got something that I can fix it up. I can make it what I want. Mm-hmm. So I had to deal with that too, because I bought the house, and before all my stuff got there, I wanted to change out the carpets, get the painting done, things like that. And it was scheduling all of that, making sure like the movers, were coming on time. And like, it was just, it's a lot to manage to move cross country.
Yeah. More so than just across town.
Right. Yes. I would agree.
Okay. And did you have a good experience? Oh my goodness. Let me go turn off the lights.
We're without power.
It's because we're moving so still. These are like automatically.
Oh, motionless.
There you
go. You got it.
At least we had this. We
Fancy
have a spare.
Offices.
Yeah. We're trying to cut back on costs now. No, they're censored lights, and we were in here so still that it just
Every once in a while, if you see me do this, that's why.
Just
making sure the lights are staying on.
All right. So, what's the biggest factor that contributed to your move here to Texas?
Well, the whole reason I moved to Texas was for work. I was working for a company. I was working for a Fortune 5, and unfortunately, my division wasn't doing well. They started laying people off, and I kind of saw the writing on the wall. I saw it coming. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start looking. And I honestly found my dream job here in Texas with a dream company. And I applied and thought, you know what, if I get it, great. If not, then I want to stay in my security bubble of Ohio. So they flew me down, I interviewed, it went great, and they offered me the role, and here I am. So
yeah,
that's what brought me here.
Yeah, she works for PepsiCo. I'm jealous too.
I didn't know if I could share that.
Okay, sorry, that's off the record. Off the record remarks. We'll delete that later. Okay. All right. So how did you find? Because right now you live in McKinney, which is what we both live, but you're in North McKinney. I'm in South McKinney. How did you figure out that McKinney was the place for you to settle?
Okay, so for me, it was narrowing down what I wanted, as far as what I wanted in a house, and or even that I wanted a house, because there was the option of a rental. There's, downtown high rises, whatever. That was off my list because both of those were, because I have a dog and I wanted space for him.
Yeah.
So I knew immediately I wanted a house.
Okay.
And then it was looking at my budget. You'll be able to check certain areas off right away after you know what your budget is. Even though I work for Pepsi, which pays very well.
Yes. Yes.
So after that, after I got it kind of narrowed down to a few different areas, I knew I wanted something new build as well, because I'm on my own. I know if I get an older house, anything that breaks, I'm gonna have to hire somebody. Right. So if I have something new, knock on wood, hopefully I don't have to deal with those issues, at least for the first few years. Yeah. So I was looking at new builds in my price range. It was kind of just, that's how I started, narrowing it down to what do I want to have. Okay. And then from there, I started looking at the areas that have those as options. So I looked at the Aubrey, the Prosper, the Salina area, McKinney, because those were all the areas that really had a lot of new builds.
Right. Everything's expanding north.
Right.
There.
Right. And that's exactly.
And affordability too is a lot better.
Right. Well,
in those two.
And Frisco and Plano's where I'm working, weren't quite as affordable, didn't have a lot of new builds in comparison. So that's why I looked at those specific areas. I will say, the thing that turned me off to the Salina and Prosper and Aubrey areas, after I did a lot of looking there and driving out there myself, was that there's one road in and out, and traffic was always miserable, even if it wasn't rush hour. Just going there to look at them, traffic was awful. And so that kind of steered me away from there. If I would have found a house I loved, then it might have been a different story. But that for me, I don't want to be sitting in traffic. Also, a lot of new builds out that way have PIDs, which is an extra tax. I don't know if is this in all states, or is this just Texas?
I don't know if it's in all states, but yeah, Christina should be able to comment and let me know. She's from Louisiana. She's watching us now. All right. The MUDs, PIDs, and PUDs are usually the three new construction things. So the MUD is the Municipal Utilities District, and then the PID is the something.
Sorry, I threw that one. It's pricey too. I can't remember what it is.
But I know that the PID gets paid off after a certain number of years, versus the MUD tax is there forever.
Well, the MUD I heard could be dropped after
like a lot of years.
Development drops it though, or if you're incorporated
20 years later.
Yeah. So anyhow, looking at that as well, because
Christina verified they do have PUDs there.
Okay. So all right. So that was something we didn't have in Ohio. So that was like kind of a surprise for me. And something I didn't even know to ask. It was one of those things you don't know what you don't know, right? Like we didn't have that in Ohio. Why would I think to ask, like, do you have an extra tax to live in this, community? Like I wouldn't have thought of that. Luckily, a lot of the new builds that I was going to look at, the people that represent the different builders would let you know that. So they will tell you it's not a big deal, but make sure you do your research, because it is a little extra money. So for me, I really liked McKinney specifically because it was established. It has this beautiful little downtown, which my realtor was like, I don't even know if we were planning on looking in McKinney. And she's like, let me just drive you through the downtown. And she took me like around the square, and I saw all the little boutiques, and there's wineries, and there's places to eat, and it's just cute. It's just a cool little like downtown, like old established downtown, but it's still like happening. There's still all these establishments going. So I really honestly, once she drove me through downtown McKinney, I was like, this is really cool. Like, I like this. I could see myself down here, just, walking down here on a nice day, or stopping for a glass of wine with girlfriends, or whatever it might be. So
there's a couple of wineries like in the square itself, and you see people out on the porch, or the little front area all the time, just relaxing, taking a sip
They
of
have
wine.
tons of little like events downtown.
Yeah.
There's a shop you can buy pie by the slice, which is super important if you like sweets like I
Emporium
do.
pies, yes. Emporium pies. They're like, what is it like? What's the best word to describe it? They're like, I don't know. We'll
Amazing. I
amazing
think she meant to
pies.
say amazing.
Emporium pies in McKinney.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Yes. And they have like the restaurants down there are amazing.
Yes.
I love Rick's. I love Harvest. I'm a little biased. Those are my two favorite. There's a lot down there, but Rick's has a great brunch. Check that out. And Harvest, I mean, their food, everything I've had there has been amazing. So
did your realtor show you Adriatica Village at all?
She didn't. I've seen it since I've moved, like since I've been here.
Okay.
But she didn't show me that when I first came to look at the area.
It's another little highlight of McKinney.
I do
that's
really like that area.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that.
Just
Do they
curious.
have much as far as new builds there?
They're running out of space. So, but
maybe that's why.
Theirs is more a villa, and the price point is like $500,000 and up. So
that's out of my price range, and probably why we didn't look there.
Yeah. Mine too. It's okay.
So no, she didn't show me that. But I would say that's probably why I ended up in McKinney, honestly.
Yeah,
it was the value. I got into a community that was, I mean, the community is awesome. I live in Trinity Falls.
Mm-hmm.
I hope I'm allowed to discuss that.
It's awesome.
Okay.
I love that one.
It's absolutely amazing. And like I said, everybody there, it's a melting pot. People are from all over. When COVID first started, you know, the neighbors are, hey, I'm running to the grocery. Does anybody need anything? And they posted on our community page and would literally drop your groceries on your front doorstep, and you would just Venmo. And people still do it today. Like, hey, I saw that Costco has the Clorox wipes, you know, because people haven't been able to find them since COVID started. Mm-hmm. So, you know, just letting people know those things. I mean, everybody there has been awesome. And I will say, just in Texas in general, I work at Frito-Lay headquarters now, mm-hmm. which is also owned by Pepsi. I didn't leave Pepsi.
Yeah.
But I work at Frito-Lay headquarters, and there's like some 3,000 people, I think, in my building, and everyone is just super friendly. You don't ever meet a stranger. That's been really, it's taken my anxiety down a couple levels since I moved here, because like I said, my biggest fear, like we talked about earlier, mm-hmm. has just been meeting new people. It can be tough to do. So. Yeah.
So now that you've kind of put in roots and you've gotten established here in the Dallas area, what are some of the really good things you're like, this is really awesome, I really like this about Dallas, and some things you're just like, this is pretty bad?
Okay. So I will say my favorite things about the area are there's always things to do. I moved from Toledo, Ohio, or thereabouts, and thought, you know, I'm like the fifth largest city in Ohio, I think it is. Mm-hmm. So, you know, there's stuff to do. There's plenty of places to eat, but nothing like here. Like, this is a whole different level. Seriously.
Different level.
It is. I've seen so many concerts since I've been here, and they're cheap. Like, I mean, downtown Dallas, there's the Grand Prairie Theater. I've seen a lot of comedians. There's unlimited amount of concerts and shows to see. There's also sports teams. We've got the Rangers, we've got the Mavericks, we've got the Stars, we've got mm-hmm. unlimited sports teams, and there's so much build up around those sports teams, like the Frisco Star, which has all these restaurants, and it's literally like, I think it's isn't it built like around the practice football field?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So and it's right there, so you can be eating and like see the field. It's very mm-hmm. cool. So if
they have away games, I think they allow the fans and stuff to watch. They have a big jumbotron. They have a practice field inside and outside. So the practice field outside has like the turf, and you can take your kids out there and run on that one. And then the one inside is a little bit more exclusive. But there's
I haven't been
the Star. That's where they headquarter too. That's where the business offices are for the Cowboys. So
you don't ever feel like you're super far away from any of the teams. Like, it's like they're incorporated into the culture here.
Yeah.
When I lived in Ohio, it was like, you know, you have like the Cleveland Browns or don't hold this against us, the Cincinnati Bengals, but, but it seemed like it was just like their own little bubble. It wasn't like really part of the culture, part of the city, where here, like, I can call tomorrow and get Ranger tickets and go to a Rangers game, and I've done that with like people I work with, just
go hang out and go to a Rangers game. A lot of people do that all the time.
Yeah.
My mom loves to watch the Rangers.
Yeah, the Rangers, and they just built that new stadium and the whole entertainment district around it, which is super cool. I checked that out a couple weeks back. That was really neat.
Yeah. You can get tours too of different.
The football stadium, the Cowboys stadium, they do a tour of the Cowboys stadium, which is awesome. If you haven't done it, check it out. It sounds like, it's a football stadium. Like, why would I care?
Yeah.
But they've actually put tons of art in the stadium, and they explain it all. And there's different shops. Like, I think they put a Victoria's Secrets in the Cowboys stadium, which I'm not sure why you need that, but you don't need that. In case you do. So there's.
I just ran out of underwear. Let me go. Sorry.
You got so excited that. Oh, goodness. I will say the holidays. So I moved down here Thanksgiving weekend.
Okay.
So my first Christmas here, I wasn't going back to Ohio because I was like, I just moved here. So it was like, what can I find to do? So Grapevine has a cool little downtown. If they would have had new builds, I might have looked at Grapevine. It's a super cute little area, but they have a cute little downtown. And during Christmas, they have the big tree lighting, which I think McKinney has it. A lot of cities have it. But they open up all of their boutiques on the main street, and like you can go in and out of the boutiques, and some of them have hot chocolate or whatever. Kind of reminds me of home, It's just like this quaint, like close little cozy village. And then Gaylord, the big Gaylord Hotel. Like I went there. They have an ice exhibit every year, and it's a different theme. So they have ice carvers come in like months before, and it's super cool. Literally and figuratively. Literally cold. You bundle up for that one. But there's just so much to do like during the holidays that I really liked as well. Like that was surprising.
And then they also have the Polar Express where there's a train that goes from Grapevine all the way to Fort Worth. And they sell tickets. And you take your kids and you go in your pajamas and they serve you hot chocolate and you take the train all the way from Grapevine to Fort Worth. Grapevine's kind of smack dab in the middle. For those of you watching, it's smack dab in the middle of Dallas, Fort Worth. It's just above the airport, which is literally halfway between Dallas and Fort Worth. So if you're in Grapevine, you take the train to the stockyards in Fort Worth. And then I don't know if you take the train back. I don't know how that works logistically, but yeah, they have, I don't know if they show the movie or they may sing songs from the Polar Express movie, but
that's neat.
That's kind of a cool little to do. I haven't done it, but I've heard about it. And yeah, there's a lot of cool things to do.
Well, and to your point, like depending on your community, and I don't know if this is like every community thing. One thing about Trinity Falls is they do a lot of their own stuff like that. So we have our own movie nights where they'll put up a big blow up screen and project a movie for people or families or whatever to come out and watch. They do like COVID, we've gotten really creative. So, like online, like music bingo and stuff like that.
Music bingo.
Yeah. Okay. They come up with so many different events. So, if you're wanting to meet people, you're not at a loss for things to do. I will say the one thing about Texas that I don't love is the traffic.
Yeah.
Texas traffic. If you're moving from California, you might not think it's a big deal because I've been in California traffic too, but Texas traffic was a bit of a challenge for me. When I first moved here, lived maybe 12 miles from work, and it would take me 45 minutes to an hour and a half to get home every day.
Wow.
So not my favorite. I was and that's why I know I mentioned it earlier in the interview. That's why I was steered away from the Albury, Salina, Prosper area because
you didn't want to be sitting in traffic.
Right. Yeah. That my time is valuable to me. That's one thing I value. So I knew specifically I didn't want to have to deal with that. And McKinney, I don't have that issue.
I think because there's so many alternate routes that you can take, because you can take 75,
Mhm.
which will take you all the way to downtown if you want to. You can go to the notoriously busy 380 if you need to, and there's some back roads and stuff. And then
Mhm.
121 is not that far either to get
Right.
you across town if you needed to go that way. For me, I would say the biggest struggle that I have with, as far as living here, because I've grown up in, I grew up in kind of the South Dallas area, but
Okay.
and my parents really never, when we drove into Dallas, they owned a bakery for 20 years, but when we drove into Dallas, there wasn't really much traffic because we were at 5 a.m. on a Saturday morning, or even during the week. 5 a.m. is not, you're not going to have anybody really on the road.
Right.
Now, once you start hitting 6 o'clock, then I would say traffic starts to accumulate. But the tolls, because I've lived in a couple of different places, and the toll roads drive me insane because you're just like, should I get on? Should I take the toll this time and spend the $1 to $2? But then it accumulates over time, and it's kind of a pain to deal with. And you're just like, man, I spent $40 3 times this month, because it automatically deducts.
It's time versus money. It's whatever you are willing to deal with.
Right.
Me, I'll pay the toll if it gets me home faster. Like, I don't care. I don't want to sit in traffic. Something else I thought about that I didn't know when I first moved to Texas is, I almost feel like I have to draw a picture to explain this, but if you haven't been to Texas, they have surface streets that run right next to the highways. Like 75, for example.
Okay.
The road.
The service road.
The service road, right.
Yeah.
And they have these little roundabouts and it's not a roundabout like you think a roundabout up north, like the circle with the whatever in the middle. Mm-hmm. No, it's like you can literally do a complete U-turn, and they have the roads set up just for that. But the surface street, just in general, I was not prepared for those. Like, I was using GPS my first trip down here, and I couldn't tell if I was supposed to be on the service street or on the highway. Okay. That threw me off. Okay. So that's just something, like, maybe your first time down here, you get a driver, because that can be a little confusing. And then because the GPS
won't distinguish. It'll say, turn on to Highway 121, and then it'll say enter the entrance ramp, but it'll call the service road the same name as the highway on your GPS. So that is important. Little note that, yes, Google, if you're watching, you need to change that, or Apple, whoever.
Yeah. The other thing, though, and I actually like this. So, the service streets where if you need to go under the highway and do a quick U-turn and get on the other way. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people are like, that's really weird and strange. And at first I was kind of that way too. And now I love them. Like, it's so much faster and so much quicker. I don't know if I did a good job of explaining what that is, but
you just kind of go under the highway, essentially, right?
Yeah. So the service road runs like parallel to the highway.
There we go. I'll be the service road, or you want...
Here's the highway. Here's the service road. And if you can drive usually the entire length of the service road next to the highway, but if you need to do a quick turnaround, like you need something on the other side, or you need to go back onto the highway because you missed where you needed to go get over, there's a little, like at every stoplight on the service road, or almost every stoplight, there's a little, almost like a U-turn that goes under the highway.
It's a separate lane.
Right. Yeah. And you can go, you don't have to sit in the traffic of the light. You can go straight away, turn around, and get back up onto the highway or the other service street that runs on the other side. So that was like, we didn't have that in Ohio. So for me, I was like, this is strange, but it's really nice and it saves a lot of time. If you can't tell, I'm a big, like, give me my time back. I like time saving. So
somebody had a question a little bit earlier about the rolling blackouts. So Abe was asking, does Texas have rolling blackouts like they do in California? I would say not really. I mean, I've lived here all of my life. I want to say there was one instance where we had some issues with the power grid at a certain time, but usually if your power does go out, it's more so attributed to the storm that's blowing through. that'll
Right.
knock your power out.
Or if you're in a new construction area, sometimes
oh yeah,
they're
Playing
building
with
houses around you and don't realize that that's your power line that they just cut. So, but yeah, no, I haven't seen any of those since I've been here.
Mhm. Good question. Good question.
Any other questions?
So last one I want to hit on, because people, affordability was kind of brought up in one of your questions. What would you, when you were looking, and this was how long ago in McKinney? What, a year ago you were looking in McKinney?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half ago. What would, how affordable do you think the Dallas area is? I guess maybe we'll just say comparatively from what you've noticed in Ohio.
Honestly, cost of living is, I would say it's comparable.
Okay.
It's not nearly as competitive in Ohio to try to find a house or whatever. So from that perspective, you might pay a little more. Obviously, there's some restrictions around that. So, it can only go so high. But I would say the cost of living was comparable. The one thing I will say, though, so when I first moved to Texas, I moved to the Mansfield area, which great school district, highly sought after in that area because of that. So just to kind of paint a little bit of a picture, and even moving from there to McKinney was a little pricier. It was a little bit more competitive. It was a little harder to find a house. Even though Mansfield was, I told you that story, not as easy either. But and it was a little bit more expensive. I wouldn't say it was drastically different though.
Okay. And from my experiences, just looking at the market the way it is right now, I would say that if you're trying to find a home and you're not too picky, probably anywhere from maybe $210 to $220 is a good starting price to kind of get you in the area that you probably want to be in.
I would say new builds closer to 3.
Yeah,
probably.
New builds probably closer to 3. And then if you need a larger space, like you have a large family, I would say anywhere from the $280,000 to $300,000 marker for this side of town. That's what I've seen for Allen, Plano, McKinney, and that's all resale. This is not new construction. New construction is going to be obviously more expensive. If you want to, in certain areas too, will be higher. But I know that some people have asked me, specific questions about, how expensive is it? What kind of money should I kind of bring to the table and set aside? So I wanted to make sure that we got that. But we pretty much hit all the questions. So, and I didn't see any more in the comments. We answered the one question about the blackouts, and all right. So we're gonna go ahead and end this. We're 43 minutes deep. All right.
Nice.
That was good.
Sorry, I talk a lot.
No, it's good. I think it'll be good for people to go back and they can rewatch. And
hopefully it's helpful.
And hopefully it's helpful. So thank you all so much for being here and for watching. And I'll see you on the next one. So bye, guys.
Bye.
And broadcast.